Okay, if we have everybody please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any changes to the agenda?
Well, there's an item on there, 6A, which was a discussion, preliminary discussion about the code of conduct. I'm not sure if we're gonna have that on there, just give an update. But other than that, the agenda is pretty much the same.
And Jess is remote. So, we need a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
Okay. Motion by Carrie, second by Dale. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carried. We move on to our presentations. First is our capital project.
So this time we'll turn it over to Jeff and Julian to bring us up to speed on our current capital project. Where's the ideal spot for this? Right in the middle? Sure. Cool. All right. Center stage. I go first, I guess, Julian. How you doing, everybody? Jeff Butler, Stigler Snyder. Kind of a brief update tonight because we're really in document production, if you will, on most of the work we're working on right now, but able to give you a pretty decent update of whatever our whole team is working on, Delia and myself and everybody back at Stigler Snyder. Before I get rolling, I did want to just make everybody was aware because I was talking to the superintendent about it. Our partnership on this project with Labella has gone so well that we are going to be merging with Labella. So from this point, in about 6 months or so, only change that would happen in terms of this project is your, letterhead and stuff like that will change, but you will be leading the Labella office of Buffalo. Student Center will be basically leading the Labella office of Buffalo and operating as them with a lot more additional services that we never had before in a bigger format. So we're really excited about that. As far as this project, first thing that's really big right now is Prospect is submitted to New York State Ed for review. They did review the architecture and engineering drawings. Both went very well. Engineering, in fact, only had one comment, which is pretty outstanding. So we're really happy with the Labella team on that side of things. So that went really well. Now we're just waiting for the project manager to finalize their review, which is really the paperwork side of things. It's been a couple of weeks, so I'll probably reach out to them pretty soon and just make sure that we're in target here to get done in time for bid date, which Julian's going to talk about today. But as far as Prospect, drawings are all done. They're ready to go out to bid. Turner and Stigler Snyder have been coordinating the front ends. So really a lot of work over the last couple of weeks, just getting those bid documents ready. And I think they're going to be out. I hope they're going to be really good. I know they're going to be good. High school renovations, admin addition. Couple things we're doing. One thing is we're getting focused on engineering coordination, so structural, civil, all the MEP scope. I've actually shown a lot of renderings and stuff previous meetings, but right now we're kind of in that production mode of trying to coordinate all the systems. We're going to get much more into obviously the little detailed things like colors and those kind of things, but right now behind the scenes we're trying to make the building, operate, all the engineering and the inner workings right now. Another thing we're focusing on is we've shown the pictures, and I'll just scroll through some of them really quickly after I do my report here. Of the entry side of the building here, we're working out all the little details of the facade above the windows and the canopies and those kind of things. And that's where I think our team does a really good job of trying to think all that through. And Delia and I have been working on that a lot behind the scenes. I keep doing a little update here, so I'll just keep putting it in the slide presentation. This is just a list of all of our tasks. Really 3.3, 3.4 is our focus, Prospect in the high school. We've done some work on a future, obviously phase 4 work, but that's kind of on hold as we wait for a future possible referendum. But we've got some schematic design stuff done. And then we're helping behind the scenes with some other small tasks, some of the district branding stuff, the Best Park Playground we've been in discussions with, and some of the early childhood programming and future addition planning. So just all things that we've been involved in, but really what we're really working on 3.3, 3.4. Again, prospect documents are done. I'm not going to go through all the details again, but here's the basic plan with the yellow being the addition on the front of the school. Again, SED went really well on the addition. The front of the school with, we'll call it our weave structural element, adds a lot of color and kind of fun to the facade, and then the addition all the way off in the distance. New signage to the left. Just a series of all the interior renderings that we've presented to school administration, district administration along the way. All this stuff is now incorporated into the bid documents. High school side, administration side. There we go. Okay. Elevation of the admin addition with the red canopy. Then we're kind of incorporating that little red stripe into the whole facade. This is the senior high entrance. Again, stuff we've seen before. I just kept it in to kind of get everybody back up to speed of what we're doing behind the scenes. This, for instance, structural is really interesting in how to do this. So our structural engineer had to do a lot of different calculations on those columns and how to make all this work. All things that we're working on with them. Floor planning. Since the last meeting, we did go a little back and forth on some of the detailed floor planning, making sure we have room for everything. This is where the engineers are asking us for more space for their individual closets and electrical and all those kind of things. So all that's getting coordinated right now with them. Some of the initial renderings we worked on. This was the kind of the central shared area in the admin addition. Really open, natural light, some bright colors. But I think turned out to be a pretty exciting rendering so far. Native American Suite services, I think presented this last meeting. So again, we're just kind of working out the details now, how this all comes together. Mechanical, electrical, all the different components of the interiors. So this is kind of in a static mode right now as we work out all those details. And then we'll continue to present things as we get through them. That's really what the design team has been up to. Really just working on documents, working on all the construction documents and everything behind the scenes. Any questions before Julian's got a lot more detailed information on dates and stuff, so he'll hit that stuff. Yeah.
Jeff, can you go back about 3 slides?
Yep.
One more. Okay, so just to point out to everyone, on the top left-hand corner, almost where it says NAS, the Native American Suite. If you look to the right of that, where it's not red, that next set of offices is essentially where my suite is, in the kitchenette and Janet's suite and my office. And then if you fast forward up to, I think, advance 2 slides, Jeff.
Yeah. I'm going the wrong way.
Yeah, so look at that space where the third desk there is on the bottom. That's where the kitchenette, Janet's space, and my space started. So we've actually expanded that out through the design conversations with the team to give the suite area a grander, larger feel, given the volume of students and staff that will be in those spaces, as well as providing some additional natural light elements. So the dotted line drawing is a little bit smaller, and as we had those conversations, it did expand.
Yeah,
I just want to point that out.
thank you for pointing that out. I'll update this main floor plan slide, which I think I would have spoken to before. Yeah, you really see it here. The toilet rooms at the right end, at the end of that red line of the American Suite. We take up that whole additional room now, so it's quite a bit additional space. I'll update that other slide for any future.
Toilet does open into the hallway at this point in time for staff use.
Correct. And some of the input we had on this, originally we had the suite opening more towards the addition, and then we got feedback from the actual staff and people in the building, and we kind of reworked that. That was reworked in the last meeting, so this is completely up to date at this point now. Any other? Any questions? Sure. Here you go.
Good evening, everybody. Julian Schnapp here with Turner Construction. It's been a little while since I've been down here presenting to you guys. It's good to see everybody. Today we're going to talk about phase 3.3 and 3.4, some of the scheduled dates and where those kind of lie right now. Then we'll get into a little bit of a timeline looking at the phase 4 referendum that Jeff touched on a little bit there. So we'll get into phase 3.3, the current construction phase that we're about to put out to bid here shortly. Skip that. It's got an angle here. There we go. All right, so phase 3.3 bid schedule. So as Jeff had mentioned, we're waiting on the final PM approval from SCD, but the plan right now is moving the documents out to bid to the contractors on 2/14, so a couple weeks from yesterday. That puts us with a pre-bid walkthrough. We chose a date over the holiday break, so we weren't impacting the faculty over at Prospect, and we can bring the construction contractors in, walk the building, get a look at everything that they're going to be doing for the project. And then that brings the bid opening about a month after the out to bid date of mid-March that we'll be receiving bids. We'll collect the paperwork, take a look at the different contractor bids, scope everybody, and we'll make a contractor recommendation for each bid package to the district and the board at a special board meeting that Bob has coordinated with the crew here for 3/29. And then as soon as we get those notices to proceed letters signed, we'll issue them right out to the contractors, get them going on the upfront paperwork to get ready for a construction breakground date of 5/2/22. So for phase 3.4, still in pre-construction there. Jeff showed some nice renderings of where they're at with design. We actually just received the DD documents from them yesterday, and we currently have our estimating team taking a look at that to make sure we're still on track within budget as design progresses through. But Jeff and his team are planning to be in design through the spring of 22. That brings us to SCD submission and the review that'll happen over the summer of 2022. And with SCD approval expected late summer, and then we'll be out to bid at the earliest bid period that we get out for the K-12 work, which is early fall, and plan construction start in November of 2022. Actually, I ended up passing over, it skipped over a slide for phase 3.3, so I'm going to jump back to that, make sure I hit that for you guys. So with the current market conditions that we've been seeing for roofing, we just wanted to build a contingency into bid day. So we did select some alternates with the team over the last couple of OACM meetings, mainly incorporating the roofing work. So we chose 2 sections of roof, alternate number 1, which is the gym roof, and then alternate number 2, which is the pre-K edition that was done back in 2006 through 2008. Is alternate number 2. And the reason those areas were selected is those areas of roof were actually still under warranty for a little bit of time until about 2028. So we selected those just to build that contingency based on the market conditions we've been seeing with roofing to make sure we fit within the budget at bid time. Alternate number 3 is a deduct alternate. We chose this. This is the decorative structure that Jeff was showing in some of his renderings. Plan is to keep that base bid, but based on the complexity of the design, and we wanted to see what that number looked like from each contractor. So when we de-scope everybody, we're able to have a good level of comfort, make a good recommendation for the contractor that gets the general trades package. And then alternate number 4 was more of a cosmetic upgrade that was in the original documents related to the roof drain installations, related to the roofing, re-roofing work in the school. The work for the roof drains can be done without replacing the ceiling. School elected to add that small piece as a further contingency plan. Jump into phase 4. So the pre-referendum discussion. So I'll just talk a little bit about the timeline that we're currently sitting in. We're working towards a May 17th vote for this phase 4 referendum. Right now, we've had a couple of meetings with the district attorney to assemble the scope coordination packet. Their target is to get that complete by 2/18. That gets that out in time for that board education bond resolution vote, which would be scheduled for that same special board meeting that we have scheduled in late March, the 29th, to approve that referendum. And then that gives the district an opportunity to get the advertisement out in the 45 to 49 day window required before that vote date of the 17th. Anybody have any questions on phase 3 and phase 4 referendum updates? All right, good to see everybody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have our instructional coaches. Yeah.
All right, thank you, everybody. Tonight, the instructional coaches and I are going to present on something we've been focusing on very intently, which is called the data-wise process. Basically, it started, we used to go together to instructional coaches and administrative CLC, CA BOCES, just to pick up strategies and ways we could work together. And basically, one of the days when we were there, we learned about what they call the data-wise protocol and how we look at student data, how do we use it best, what can we do to change things to improve student learning. And we ended up basically just taking an online 10-hour course together and out of Harvard University. And we did it the fall of 2020, and then we started implementing it last summer of 2021. Basically, what our coaches did was they, sorry, I'm not very good at public speaking, I'm sorry. Basically, the data-wise process has connections to our current district goals, like the priorities and our DSIP, journey of a warrior, increased collaboration, improved writing achievement across all content areas and discipline, as well as our district initiatives, data-wise, data-driven instruction, instructional engagement strategies, developing aligning curriculum, student social and emotional developmental health, as well as equity and diversity. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is provide an overview of what the data-wise process is, as well as show you what a walkthrough of a grade level action plan is. But basically, like I was saying, we started this in, we started showing grade level bands the process of how to look at the data-wise process in the summer of 21, as well as taking each grade level individually last summer and looking at the current data post, like what data we could get because of COVID. And we went with that, and we started like basically taking a deep dive at each grade level and seeing what we could do to improve the student learning, where the students were at. Basically during the school year, we have 4 data meetings. We are currently finishing up our second of 4. Basically, at these meetings, we look at data, student work. We have on-demand PD. We've had a lot of really great discussions coming out of the coaches, the teachers, the principals, the assistant principals. There's been a lot of input from all areas. We've had a lot of help from Marcy and technology, and we've actually had all our data meetings over at St. Pat's, which we really like that because we're like off campus, less distraction. So that's worked out well. At these data meetings, we create action plans, which they're going to elaborate on much deeper. We have a reading action plan, a writing action plan, and a math action plan. We have, like I was saying, we've had a lot of like on-demand, like professional development right at these meetings. Sue Schnaufer has come and done all of our PD, all of our coaches have done PD. And you're going to see when you go through the action plans, like how like it'll show what they would like, what they need the coaches to model. We've had grade level study teams developed to help us see through each action plan between one action or data meeting and the next. There's an increased grade level meeting attendance. We have actually been really excited about this whole process. And I want to thank obviously all the instructional coaches, they've been amazing. They step up and do whatever is asked of them. They've had to implement a lot. They've had a lot put on them. Dr. Beeler, who's been wonderful, he's just like given us like a lot of support and trust and consistency with everything. Principals, teachers, assistant principals, and you guys, everybody, I want to thank you for everything. So now I'm gonna turn it over. to Kelly. Yes.
I just wanted to mention, you mentioned that there's 4 meetings per year,
Yes.
but that's 4 meetings per grade level.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes.
Right, so I know I know that this team in front of us has had a lot of meetings, and a lot of good work has been done. So, sometimes when people wonder what do the coaches do every day, meetings can be productive and not necessarily productive, but these big 4 meetings, as we're calling them, I've heard very, very good things about them all the participants. I just want to make sure people realize that in essence, that is quite a few meetings, all focused on student achievement and data. So,
And a lot
thank
of
you.
work goes into prepping for them as well as follow through after the meeting. And that's the beauty of these data meetings is like, we can come up with great ideas, but where's the follow through? And this is the piece I feel like we've been missing, like the you'll hear there, it's like the follow through. There are specific dates and times and who's doing what, and it's been working pretty well so far.
It is. Okay. So I'll start by talking a little bit about what DataWise actually is. And what Dr. Beeler was talking about was the idea that these are a lot of meetings that we're facilitating. And this is a way of facilitating those meetings in order to make them effective and efficient. And so that's really why this has been powerful for us, because it's not a new thing to implement. It's not one more thing, it's rather the thing that unifies our collective efforts. And it's a means of organizing and bringing coherence to the work of improvement that we already do. I don't understand this clicker.
Just let me know. if you
Yeah.
switch it.
Not at Levi. Okay. So it was created by Harvard University, and so that's, we have a little bit of trust in it. And it provides a step-by-step process for the actual methods of going through it, as well as the habits of mind that we need in order to support the improvement process here at school. So here are the 8 steps, if you can see somewhere what the 8 steps of the improvement process are. We'll talk about all 8 of them individually, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them now. But steps 1 and 2 are really part of the organization and preparatory process. So that's why the image looks as it does. Once we get to step 3, it's really more cyclical from then on. So we started with 1 and 2, those are pretty much done. They can be redone annually, but really step 3 is what we're doing over and over and over again in order to try and help our students improve and achieve. Yeah, I missed it, sorry. So no, go ahead. So that starts with the ACE habits of mind. And this is part of the mindset that is really helpful in order to get something effective out of meetings. So it's a shared commitment to action, assessment, and adjustment, intentional collaboration in support of ongoing adult learning, and a relentless focus on evidence in all conversations. And so the idea is to really stay focused on these things and to tune out all the extraneous stuff. So step 1 is really to establish the organization. It's the organization for collaborative work, where we focus on establishing structure, setting the tone, and taking stock. So establishing the structures is really about creating the teams who are going to work together and the time for them to work. So creating a team is not going to help if we can't get together, and so that's been done. It's about setting the tone, where we've got together over the summer, we set meeting norms. Each team has their own set of norms. We've discussed protocols so that we all know what to expect in order to make meetings go a little bit more efficiently. And we've acknowledged our work style preferences so that we know what to expect from one another and what my strengths, what my weaknesses are and what your strengths might be. And so how we can take advantage of that in order to be pretty effective. So then we went into building assessment literacy. This is ongoing. So this isn't really a step that ever is finished, but as we go through, we build assessment literacy, which means that we need to know when we look at data, what does it mean and how can we use it? We need to know when we look at it, can we, what kind of decisions can we make from this? At what point is it valid? And at what point is it really not good for this specific purpose? And then from there, we decide as a group, we're going to choose a focus area and identify a priority question. So we look at the data and we look, where is our strengths and where is our weaknesses? And so then we choose a focus area, we've chosen math and ELA, and then we start really digging deep into it. Where do we need to improve in math and ELA? So we might choose a priority question for the entire district or for the buildings, and then we'll dive into it a little bit more deep from there.
That brings us to step 4. So at this point, the main steps of the process are really done with the instructional teams or teachers, because they'll be the ones that carry out the data plan. So once the focus area is established, priority questions have been laid out, those are brought back to the grade level teams, and their job is then to look at their own data, whether that be the third grade state assessment or whatever. So they get multiple data points. They really look at that data in that focus area and trying to address those priority questions that are brought back to them. And through that, step 4, the priority of step 4 is to look at that data and to articulate a learner-centered problem. And so that is what we would identify the skill that underlies maybe the deficit that we're seeing our students have. So the learner-centered problem should be common to all students. So we're talking about like the tier 1. This would be like something we're doing with just small group of kids, but for the grade level as a whole, and how that if we improve this learner-centered problem, this will improve the grade of the grade level. So a learner-centered problem should be directly related to the focus area, obviously in a priority question. It should be formed from multiple data sources, not just one. So we want to make sure that we're seeing the big picture. We also want to make sure that it's within our control as a teacher, right? So we can't control kids coming to school on time. We can't control that they're tired. So we want to make sure that the learner-centered problem is focused on something that we can control and improve on. It should be a statement, not a question, and we want to keep it specific and small and not broad. So an example of a learner-centered problem might be students have trouble drawing text-based differences when reading. And then from there, once we've established that learner-centered problem, we will go to step 5, which is examining our own instruction. So now we have to place things back on us as teachers. What can we do better to address that learner-centered problem, right? Not what can our kids do better, what our students can do better. It really comes back to our instruction. So the goal is to reframe the learner-centered problem as a problem of practice that will help solve. So again, it comes back to what can we control? We can control our teaching, our instruction. So we want to make sure that we link, so you can change that slide. Go ahead. So we want to make sure that we're linking the learning to our teaching. It's all connected, right? So again, teachers want to focus their conversation on what they can control in the classroom. They want to have their conversation not be about what students are and aren't doing, but what are we as teachers doing or not doing, and how can we make it better. And from there, so an example of a problem of practice might be, so if you go to the next slide, right? The one I mentioned, so your learner-centered problem is the trouble with drawing text-based inferences. So as teachers in whatever grade level, we might say, okay, so as teachers, we realize that we do not teach inference explicitly. We do not help students make connections between inferences that they see in their own life, skills that they see in text. So we bring that focus back on us. What are we doing that we can improve on to help our learners? It's not their fault, right? We're the teachers, so if they're not learning that, we're not teaching. Like, what are we doing wrong and how can we fix our stuff? So once we establish that, we move on to the actual action plan, because I think that that's where we really like this process. Is we all talk about what everybody's doing now, but then we never really, we just talk about it, right? Nothing ever happens. So this action plan really makes us become accountable. And this is where we put things in writing. So we've established that learner-centered problem. This is our problem of practice. So what strategy could we bring to our classroom to try to help us improve this? And once we decide on that instructional strategy, or maybe there's a couple that we might do, we agree on a plan. What will that look like and sound like in our classrooms if we're doing it correctly? And then we put it into writing. And we become very specific in the tasks, the responsibilities, the timeframes that teachers need to stay within to complete that action plan. Well, how are we going to assess and monitor student progress in this action plan? And then we also talk about supports that we might need in making sure that we facilitate that strategy that we chose properly in our class. So that's the biggest thing. And then that's where the coaches will come in and provide modeling, PD, and again, meeting with those teachers to talk to them about that plan. How is this plan going? And so then that would bring us to step 7, which is planning, measurement, and progress, right? So with anything, the best link plan sounds great before you put it in front of students and then they figure out everything you think is gonna go so swimmingly well, right? So we always have to make sure that we're flexible and that we're willing to alter the plan when we know that it's not going in the right direction, or our assessments that we chose are showing us that there isn't progress. So what can we do right now to fix this plan as we move forward? We don't just stay the course and be like, oh, well, that's too bad. You know, that's what we said. So that's the other part of that, to just make sure that we're always willing to make those changes as we move forward and see that things are or are not good. And then finally, so this is just a little visual that we like, but data values, where we start with that administrative level where they look at their data, find that focus area and priority question, and as it filters to the grade level, they start to streamline that into something that becomes much more specific and manageable to address one thing at a time. Obviously, we can find multiple kind of problems, but we can't address them all at once. We pick one that's the biggest bang for a buck, and then we move from there. When we address that problem, and we complete that action plan, is that problem fixed? We need to continue working on it, or do we move on to the next problem? So it just is an ongoing thing, which is why we're here. And then the last step is acting and assessing. So again, you constantly want that communication. Are we following through with our action plan? Or do we just say, hey, that was great, and we put that in writing, but who's gonna ever check us, right? So we want to make sure that we're communicating and that we're truly implementing that action plan and assessing and tracking student progress. Is everybody still on the same page? Are we doing what we said? Are we keeping track of those dates when we said we would have this completed? Are our students learning? And once our action plan is complete, what's our next step so that we can move forward? And then that's the process to start over again. That is pretty much the data wise process. So Erin and Marion are going to kind of take you through a little bit of what an action plan might look like and how it comes to fruition.
So before you do that, can I ask a question?
No, I don't know. Depends on how difficult.
It's not that difficult. How long is the overall process?
To get an action plan together.
Like, yeah, between identifying really what the problem is to implementing the action.
So when we have our data meetings, which is one today with first grade, this morning was all about math from 8 to 11:15. So by that time, we pretty much had an action plan outlined. I'll firm it up and send it to the grade level, like the specifics that, you know, like our pencil in. And then the afternoon was spent on the LA. So we've really tried to hone that in so that we can try to get both in, so teachers aren't being pulled out for a day for math and a day for reading, and that the kids are getting 2 missed instructional days. That the summer process was a little bit slower. Of course, we're still learning as we go, so we did spend a few days on that, and we'll spend more time on it in the summer with more planning days. But we try to keep, because we're trying to just hone in on one thing.
But those action plans that we created today are going into effect either tomorrow or the beginning of next
So
week.
it's not weeks. It's
No.
No, it's right away.
No, so we
That's
get the
what I-
data, and the
yeah.
data is due, you know, we hopefully just a day or two before the meeting so that it's current. And then we look at it right away, we make a plan, and we implement it right away. So there's not like a big turnaround time with that.
Okay, so that takes us to objective number 2, which is action planning. Now, the action planning process entails following a set prepared agenda for a meeting with teachers and coaches, as well as completing several steps of a prepared form. So you're going to see an overview of an action plan meeting agenda, as well as a form for creating the action plan, which occurs in real time during the meeting. This is what you're looking at. Back up one, please. There we go. This is the agenda template that we use for the meeting, and as the other coaches just spoke about, a typical meeting for ELA would be a few hours. Okay, math, a few hours. So we have 3 meeting objectives that you can see there. The first one being to review the previous action plan, examine data in order to identify a learner-centered problem and a problem of practice. An example of data analysis could be looking at NWEAs, scores for reading, language, and all the different areas, benchmarks, as well as student learning. An example of a learner-centered problem could be, and this is one that we just worked with for a particular grade level. Students struggle to provide relevant text-based evidence in their reading and writing. An example of the problem of practice was teachers lack providing the explicit direct instruction and how to find relevant details. So after that's determined, then we move on and engage in PD. So an example of this could be learning specific step-up to writing strategies. Okay. Then we go on to objective 3, which is to actually write the action plan for implementation. And for example, we might focus that action plan, in this case, on explicit direct instruction, as well as step-up to writing strategies. And the plan itself will include specific tasks for all involved teachers, coaches, as well as assessments. Now, Erin will explain more about the action plan based on form that we use.
Great, so here's the action plan template that we use, and I'm going to use a 5th grade math action plan that we just recently did. So we noticed that students struggled on solving word problems. We analyzed NWEA data to determine that. We looked at the Eureka math module assessments and student work. So once we figured out that, okay, they're struggling with math problems, now we dig a little deeper. What is it? Well, students had difficulty understanding which operation that they should use, whether they were adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. So then we analyzed, well, what is it in our practice that we need to improve on? And we thought we need more training in how to use the Eureka math module strategies like tip diagrams, double number lines, number bonds, etc. So right then we did some PD on tick diagrams, which is a bar model kind of drawing to help kids see what's happening in the word problem in a more concrete way. And we decided that that would be the strategy that we would implement over the next few weeks to improve students' ability to do word problems. So we jumped right in now to roles and responsibilities. So who's going to do what? What are we going to do? Who's going to do it? When are we going to do it? And we decided, well, the first thing we want to do is a pre-assessment. Let's see what our kids can already do. And as a coach, I'm going to make that. And the next day I create that pre-assessment so we can go into it on Saturday. And then we decided, okay, now we need to teach explicitly how to draw a tape diagram for each operation. So we created word problems that would do that. And then we're just going to do a daily, two problems daily throughout the next few weeks. We're going to meet weekly to see how students are progressing and to see if what we're doing is effective, if it's making a difference in what our students are able to do. And we will then revisit and adjust if not. If they are successfully using these models, we can move to multi-step problems and keep increasing the difficulty in the word problems. Okay, and then there we go. So next slide. By doing these action plans, it's really, a lot of teachers have said, I finally feel like I'm heard and I'm excited for these data meetings because they're really helpful to what I do in my practice. They get that on-demand professional development. They're able to say, this is what I need, and we can address that as coaches. We created study teams that we do after school for additional training. We model in the classroom. I went in, modeled how to do tip diagrams. Development of instructional tools, so creating all of these word problems, adoption of programs based on current needs. This really, we saw this at Prospect when we adopted a phonics curriculum. Teacher said, what we have is inadequate. Focused collaboration, really this gives us an avenue to have conversations so that coaches can be used effectively in the classrooms, share decision-making and increase student learning. That's what we're all about. Any questions?
So when you do the professional development, you learn it yourself and then you provide it to the teacher. Basically how you model.
We brought, like, when we adapted from phonics to reading, we had sadly our PD, like, just to show them how to work through the process, through the program. There's a a lot that happens before these meetings. The coaches put all the data together beforehand. They bring folders and what's going to be coming up, look at work, next module, that type of thing. They've been very organized with everything.
I love how that it's, working model where something's not working. Very insightful. Thank you.
Let's work through with it, we'll see where it goes. Hopefully we can get better with the process.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you.
I'll give it.
Next, we'll move on to the safety and reopening.
Oh, actually, we have one more. You might recall, I think 2 meetings ago, I spoke on the wellness surveys that we were doing with the staff. And then I sort of gave a little preface that the student data will be coming up with Corinne, who's our SEL coach. And this is that time. All right.
Just not really, right?
So why is SEL important? I looked at depression, anxiety, and behavioral disorders among school children. This is from the CDC. This is 2018 data. You look at students in that middle bar. My focus this year is on middle school. So I look at students ages 4 through 7, or grades 4 through 7, but that middle bar is approximately first grade through 6th grade. If you look, depression increases, anxiety increases, but those behavioral disorders are most significant among middle school students. If you look at children living below the poverty level, 1 in 5 have some type of behavioral, mental, or developmental disorder. And then age and poverty are a significant factor in students getting treatment. So then I look at, I'll go to the next slide. Behavioral health supports by county. So I highlighted Allegheny and Chautauqua counties because those are our 2 neighboring, and looked at our behavioral supports. And this is based on per 100,000 students or 100,000 children, and it's prorated for more or less students. If you look at the pediatric, psychiatrists, psychologists, we don't have a lot of resources here in our county. We did an extensive book study with Daryl Tonema, and it was about the book, The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. Over and over throughout that book, it kept coming back about relationships. You must build relationships with the students. Relationships are what's going to get them through. Building relationships are going to heal that trauma. So, to the next slide. How does this data collected impact our students and our education? Student-teacher relationships throughout elementary school, 1st through 5th grade, have found to be linked to gains in reading achievement, where student-teacher conflict will actually lower those reading achievements. Teacher-student conflict and dependency in kindergarten has been known to have an effect and impact both math and reading all the way up through 8th grade. So we need to build those relationships, and that's going to support those academic pieces. Go to the next slide. Why do they matter? Out of 46 recent studies, this was from 2019, they impact both short and long-term effects. They increase higher student academic achievement, increase attendance, increase grades, fewer disruptions, fewer suspensions, and lower school dropouts. So I pulled some survey data, and the next slide breaks down the 4th grade findings. These are just a few of the questions that were asked. We looked at 80 student responses and what motivates you to do well in school. Overwhelmingly and across all grade levels, it was they wanted good grades. That was the #1. But there were other things that
supported that, time to have fun activities after they've done their work, like an if-then. Their favorite classes were math and STEAM at the 4th grade level. All students identified that they had at least one friend. And that was important because I was looking at student relationships with other students and student relationships with adults. And if a student identified that they had no friend and no adult that they could relate to, then I grouped them in my tier 3 category. So 23% of the students said they didn't connect with an adult at school. Now, this data came from October. So, you know, it was beginning of the school year. These are 4th graders. This has changed. This was all shared with 4th grade teams and all the other grade level teams. They've been working to do things to build relationships within their classrooms. The 3 biggest problems 4th grade identified were vandalism in the bathroom, bullying, and stealing others' belongings. These were things, some of them, they were easy to remedy. The vandalism, we found that there were high school students coming over to the middle school. It was an easy fix. We shut that door between the pool and the gym area, put signs up, it's off limits. We have more student or teacher walkthroughs. Teachers are checking bathrooms as they walk through. That's non-existent anymore. Bullying, we are taking measures to address that. The grade 5 findings, favorite classes were PE and art. One student identified that they had no friend in 5th grade, and then 28% identified they didn't connect with an adult. Their primary issues were bullying, students being mean to others, and students disrespecting adults. So we have some programs in place to address all of these biggest problems that the students identified. And again, their number one was they wanted to get good grades. That was the motivating factor. Their second motivating factor was trying to do what they wanted to, not a scheduled activity. You know, so they had choice when they were done. 6th grade findings showed that PE and STEAM were their favorite classes. Again, the motivating factor was, the primary motivating factor was good grades. The second was time to have fun activities, and those were scheduled fun activities chosen by the teacher. 35% said they didn't respond or said they didn't connect with an adult, but I put a star there because some students listed their family members. So this, I omitted them because yes, their family member works within the building, but I wanted to see if they connected with other adults in the building. Their primary problems, negative student behavior, bullying, and that drama of 6th grade. 7th grade findings. Their favorite classes were PE and social studies. Motivating factors are good grades, time to have fun activities, and free time. 2 students answered with no identified friend in 7th grade, and those 2 students also said that they didn't have an adult that they connected to. Bullying, baking in the bathroom, and students being mean to one another were their 3 primary problems. Again, we upped the adult check-ins throughout the bathrooms. That has reduced significantly. So how, let me go to the next slide. How am I addressing these issues? Tier 1 SDL supports, we have morning meetings. I've been working with Gabrielle Papa and Jerry Musial to write 13 characteristics lessons based on the 13 characteristics of a good human being that was put together by the Senegal Language Department. We're using the Rethink Ed Tier 1 support lessons in enrichment. I have our school scheduled for the Kids Take on Bullying Challenge. It's done by PACER. It's a national school bullying prevention organization, and they've connected with Cartoon Network. Our Tier 2 supports, Rethink Ed has Tier 2 lessons that delve a little bit deeper into those topics. We've started to use some classroom tracking plans. Teachers have done some lunch groups of 5 to 10 students, building relationships in small groups and trying to facilitate some relationships among children. We've had some of the counselors and social workers doing some small group counseling. And then we've added some support referrals, the JCC Liberty Partnership, Alex Kyler. He is currently 5 days In high school, he's gonna try to transition, so he's 1 day over at Seneca. Right now, he has 8 students at Seneca. He's trying to increase that number and get more students on board for that program. And then Amy Crawley and I have started up a mentoring program, so we're connecting high school students with middle school students. We have a tier 3 level support. Those kids that, I have another question, is there anything else you want to tell me? And there were things that were some red flags that I couldn't address that were more appropriate for individual counseling. So I referred students to individual counseling, support referrals to Berkshire Farms. That's Fallon Austin, and she has some wraparound services and a lot of connections within the county to get people connected with food stamps, support for housing, support for utilities, those types of things. And then those students that identified that they had no adult that they connected with and no student, I made their family liaisons. I alerted them to that. So they do regular check-ins, check in a couple times a week. How are you doing during lunch? Hanging out, showing some like hunting magazines, making those kind of adult connections within the building. The last slide, this is an approach that we are moving towards and using restorative practices. Now, restorative practices has a 3-tier support system. It starts with building relationships and then moving to maintaining community and then repairing the harm when it does get to that point with a more formal group process and formal conferences. That is expected to begin in the spring and carry over throughout the summer and get all more staff trained and on with the process.
So are you gonna redo a survey again? To see if everything is improved?
Spring, yes.
Just in the spring?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did this one in October, and then I analyzed the data, shared it with each one of the grade levels, met with each one of the grade levels individually, explained all of the support programs that we had available, helped all the teachers write the referrals to refer students. Amy and I created the mentoring program. We actually just launched with our first mentor meetings today. We had our high school students. We had Melinda Sanderson come down from Buffalo. She's a New York State mentoring program regional coordinator. She came down in January to train all of our mentors. So they're trained by the New York State mentoring program to help guide our students. We identified students that maybe didn't have as many friends as others and had high potential, but maybe weren't working up to their potential because they're just disinterested in the classes right now. We're trying to show them how much more the high school has to offer once they get up there.
Anyone else have any questions?
The only one is just a follow-up. If you do another survey, what do you do to get participation?
What am I gonna do to increase participation?
Yeah, well, I mean, just looking at the numbers, like in grade 4, you had 80 students out of how many?
We have 90, yeah, so it was
Okay, then grade 5, 36 out of,
out of 90, yeah. They had significantly less participation, yeah. And then they actually had a couple teachers out for an extended period of time. And so they had substitutes in there. I think that kind of it's off that grade level.
is in grade 7, is that low, 69 students, is there 100 and something? Okay, so again, what are you gonna do to get participation? Taking surveys?
Well, I can see what we can offer students to increase participation. I know, I would like to have a designated time within the school day where, just 15 minutes, everything stops, everybody takes a survey at this time, and then we move on. That way we're not losing as many students. There might be some that are out in quarantine or things of that nature, but I think we'll be able to capture more students if we have like a, everybody stops and takes it approach, not a, when you come in the morning, take it, because it's kind of chaotic at that time. You know, people are, students sometimes are arriving late, they have to run down the van and come back, and, you know, it's just not the best time to take it.
Let me just jump in. Oh,
Okay, no, I was just gonna say, we went remote right around that time in October also, and then we also gave, Mr. Garrett, right around that time also. So I think there was just a bad survey.
And then am I safe to say that, just quite frankly, we do have some instructional staff that aren't fully on board with this process?
Absolutely.
Which is something that Nikki and I will have to, this is a part where I think we're also working with staff to understand the significance of SEL. It's not just one more thing. In many cases, it is the only thing that everything else gets built upon. And I don't know as though that mindset is understood by all of the staff at the moment. But I think with the work that Corinne has done, even since the administration of this, that many more people are on board. And Corinne is in a tough spot because she's a teacher, she can't make teachers do things. So that is a thing that Nikki and I work through. So I understand that was probably a challenge, you know, awkward question for
I
you.
can only offer so much candy.
Right.
So Kurt, can I just ask you a question? Earlier on, you had made a notation of students that feel disengaged, disenfranchised, disconnected from school, and we know the negative impact that that can have on learning and achievement. But can you just, like, what are some of the alternate pathways that a student in that category might gravitate towards that are less healthy when, as triggers from when we see a student that may be physically manifesting, you know, disengaging with school? What are some of those things and those visual, and I know they're sort of practices, we're talking about a healthy approach to the things that sometimes students just simply can't control, but they're subjected to or imposed upon them by outside influences. So what are some of the, I guess, detrimental physical attributes that we'll see in students in terms of their choices? I think we know what 7th grade and 6th grade might do some of the characters. But what are some of the longer range implications that you can just touch on a little bit?
So we've had some students like turn to baking or like negative behaviors, taking classes, you know, not engaging in class assignments. We have some kids that we've identified where they will do work for certain teachers and they're not doing things for other teachers, or they're going to classes here, but they're skipping classes there. Like, what is the difference? You know, like, what is that factor there that, and I think it may be that relationship. They don't have that relationship with that individual. I've asked counselors, social workers to pull students to question, you know, could it be a student within the classroom that they have a conflict with? We've had a lot of social media bullying, especially through Snapchat, because Snapchat, you know, in a 7th grader's mind, it disappears forever. You know, we know it doesn't, but we also can't recover what's being said in there unless we are shown a screenshot. And we've had a lot of conflict in social media. I'd like to get into more good technology use and instruction in, you know, appropriate technology use, and really just start teaching kids, you know, what happens when you send that message and how detrimental it can be to other people.
And then just the last thing, kind of to comment on something you highlighted, and I think it was particularly telling that at each grade level, students were reporting their favorite subjects or their favorite content areas, and it varied by grade level, which tells me many things, that many of our teachers are charismatic and able to teach and communicate kids. Did in the survey, I didn't quite catch it, did students identify things that the subjects that they were least engaged with?
There is, yeah, the charts show like what had most engagement and least engagement. They also had stated why they like those classes. I also had another question about your top 3 friends And I started to make connections to see like a social network map. That can be extensive to do for each grade level and very time consuming, but what you do is you see, you know, who has all the connections and who maybe is an outlier where they only have that one friend, Joey. They don't have anybody else that they're connected to. So Joey is their lifeline. So if Joey leaves, you know, then that student doesn't have a friend. So I was looking at patterns like that. One of the other things I'm working on actually for this week is for the half day. I have special area teachers for a training as well as teachers' aides. So we're going to do an SEL training, but then I'd like to pull the special area teachers aside and say, you know, what is your approach to this? Because if you notice, it was STEAM, gym, art, you know, that kept coming up as favorite classes. And I want to identify, is it the teacher? Is it their approach to learning? Are they making, you know, those connections, those relationships with students, and try to mimic that for other things?
I think it's important to note too, and then I'll pass the microphone on. Simply because a student or in the grade level might say their subject that they like the least is X, and I can imagine back to my secondary days that if you ask them what their favorite subject is, if they happen to have swim first period and they were a high school student, they might not like that, and that might be temporarily the end of their world. But then when they transition to perhaps floor hockey or pickleball or something, it is somewhat contextual, but it is important to pull out those patterns, particularly with individual students. So this is really helpful. So thank you, and thanks to the Seneca teachers for doing this. I think this represents a very strong model for us to move forward. And for the board members' recollection that this was really a pilot in this building, and we will likely have some additional conversations as we build the budget for next year and how this extends out to the other buildings. But this is really excellent work, so thank you.
And now we will go on to our school safety and enrollment.
All right, terrific, thank you. Over the past 2 weeks, the number of students and staff reporting either quarantine orders or positive test results has dropped significantly. We are currently in the single digits in each building. Yesterday, 5 students across all of the buildings and no staff members reported positive test results. This is in comparison or in contrast to when we had 20 or 30 students and staff members just a couple weeks ago. These and the numbers from yesterday actually include the weekend tests. 4 individuals have utilized our new test to stay program with positive results, meaning they were able to stay in school during a time when they would normally have to have been quarantined. The district also has received another delivery of COVID test kits just today, and an additional delivery is scheduled for this Friday. These are kits that are available for student and staff use, specifically for the test to stay program, but we do occasionally use them for other tests as well. This reduction is terrific news and provides some well-needed respite for our staff that has been tracking, contact tracing, and coordinating the continuity of instruction. I'd like to take a moment to recognize a couple of individuals who have worked very hard behind the scenes. We know that Mr. Haley has been our primary contact tracer, but working to continue the students' education has been Mr. Long and Ms. Monty Flores, both of which are now currently at the Warrior Academy. Mr. Long has taken on the responsibility of leading our digital learning programs. He has developed a process for identifying, scheduling, and monitoring all of the students who are in long-term remote and short-term remote learning. Over the past several months, he has ensured the efficient enrollment of quarantined and ill students. He has problem-solved any issues that have arisen. He has personally made contact with parents, even driven to their house to assist with logging in. He has also ensured a high quality of education is available to all of our students when they are facing challenging circumstances. Mrs. Flores has recently assumed the role of additional contact tracer, attendance tracker, and pretty much all around do everything that needs to get done around the remote instruction as well. In fact, I was recently at the Warrior Academy well after the regular workday, found my working to help families who have been affected by COVID. When I told her that, I really appreciated her being here, but she needed to get home, her response was, I just have a few more families to get in touch with. I really want to get this done and help them out. I just wanted to, we have a lot of these people in the district who do incredible things for our students and our community members. Behind the scenes, sometimes they don't get the recognition. They're not looking for recognition, which probably means they deserve it even more. So I particularly just wanted to recognize these. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions?
Any update on the Supreme Court thing that's going on?
Yes, just as a matter of review, that's been a topic of extensive conversation. For those who don't know, a little bit ago, a Supreme Court Justice in New York State said that Governor Hochul's continuation of the mask mandate was perfectly acceptable and in compliance with rules and regulations and law. About 10 days or so ago, the world abruptly shifted when a Nassau County Supreme Court Justice down in Long Island said, not so fast, it's not, can't do it, you've exceeded your authority. Essentially what that did is created two penalties, offsides and roughing the passer or something like that. And so a third judge in New York, the appellate court, said offsetting penalties, we're going to replay this, and arguments were submitted in writing last Friday by 4 p.m. I'm told that occurred, and there is no timetable for a decision. If the appellate court decides one way or the other, it would be my estimation that the other side will then appeal that, and that would be to the United States Supreme Court. I believe that that would be the next step after the appellate division in New York. So best estimate from the New York State Education Department, Council with School Attorneys in New York State is to expect a decision, but not to expect it soon, and not to prognosticate on what courts will say. So we'll keep it updated. Decision, as I say that, the decision honestly could come tomorrow, or in 6 weeks, or 3 weeks, or a month, or there is no timetable from the appellate court. So until then, we are under the jurisdiction of the New York State Education Department of the school district. So, and just a side note, Erie County, which actually passed legislation taking it out of Governor Hochul's hands, Erie County was not subject to that either ruling from the Supreme Court justices, as they actually passed a law dealing with that. So a little bit different county by county, but the rest of the 40 counties in New York State are now ping-ponging back and forth.
Any other questions? All right, then, we will move on to public communications. Does anybody that want to speak or Title VI? No one has signed up. No Title VI, okay. Then we will move on to central office message. Karen, how about we start with you?
Sure. I need to thank Mr. John for assisting me in getting a document signed by the nation in regards to our impact aid application that was submitted on time. Great flop or something on yesterday, and yeah, but it's done. And just so you know, last year we had 1,094 kids eligible. This year we have 1,180 kids eligible. To be eligible, it means to live on territory. So about 84% of the kids that attend school in district, not OCs and all that other stuff, are on territory and therefore eligible for us to receive impact. Based on current year numbers projecting forward for the 22-23 impact aid money coming in, looks like it's about 19 million. That's all I have.
Come a long way from
Good job.
2013.
Yeah. Document signed. Everybody. Wow. How about Dr. Wheeler?
Sure. Just a quick update. On the 7th, or December 7th, the board received a presentation on the current status of reading and ELA in the district. Since that time, the board has also received updates on mathematics and has heard similar concerns over academic progress across all subject areas. These concerns are similar to those expressed by parents, schools, and students across the region and realistically throughout the entire country. Fortunately, though, Salamanca has the resources to remediate the current learning loss due to pandemic-related interruptions in our students' formal education. Over the past 6 weeks, I've had the opportunity to meet with educators from all buildings to identify barriers to success. I've also had the chance to meet with high school student government representatives, and we have commissioned a reading task force that has identified what is working well, as well as some possible options moving forward. As a result, the following actions are being considered for implementation. We're not at the point where we can make a formal request, but likely before our next board meeting, we will have things that will need to go before the personnel committee. So some of the likely actions moving forward is a comprehensive review of our current ELA curriculum resources, which is called Journeys. You may recall that we implemented this, I want to say my second year, so about 6 years ago, and that reaches about its end of life at about this point in time. So we're looking to replace that entire series. We're also looking for additional extended day learning for all students, as well as required attendance at extended learning day opportunities for students who are identified as significantly below level. That doesn't necessarily mean below grade level, but we're talking about students who are at our upper tier 2 and tier 3 instruction level. And I just wanted to sort of bring us all back to what that means, because over the past year, maybe 2 years, you've heard us reference tier 1, 2, and 3 instruction and resources and supports significantly more than we have in the past. And just so we're all on the same page, tier 1 is basically the strategies that work for the vast majority of our students, say 75 to 80% of our students. Tier 2 are interventions or instructional strategies that work for another 15 to about 15%, we'll say. So they're sometimes done in small groups. It's when that first round of instruction doesn't seem to work. You might just need a little bit of extra help, with division of fractions. It's not that you need to go to a special class. It's not that we need to talk about special ed. I just need to figure this out. It should be somewhat short term. We put an intervention in place and then we're back and everything's great. Tier 3 interventions, and that can be behavioral interventions, it can be instructional interventions. When we talk about tier 3, we're really talking about sort of very specific and tailored assistance and whatever that domain might be that they need help. So when we're talking about beginning to require some extra help after school, and this isn't going to be sitting in class and, read this book and, teacher's going to sit over you. It's let's get a snack, let's have recess, and let's spend some time maybe reading after school, just so that we can extend the time that we have with these students. We're also talking about additional summer learning opportunities for all students. We've had a very robust summer program for the past several years. We're actually looking to increase the offerings, and then likely require summer school to avoid retention for students who have not met the grade level expectations. So in the past, we have not talked very much about retention. That has come across from every one of the groups that we talked about or talked with as a detriment, passing kids on, pushing them forward. We've also not required or remanded summer instruction for students. And we're looking at putting that in place. To what degree, I'm not sure, but frequently these summer programs that we do offer, the students who need it the most don't have the opportunity to take advantage. There's probably a lot of reasons for that, but we will look to remedy those reasons and provide that summer instruction. We're also looking at the implementation of a volunteer program for parents and community members, both at Prospect and Seneca. This would necessitate the addition of a coordinator to develop the training, the expectations, and put a schedule together. We know and have seen, and at one point in time in the past, we had parents come into schools to assist. And in many districts that works exceptionally well. And we think it's time to give that a go around here. There are and there have been parents, grandparents, and other community members who have expressed an interest in coming into our schools. Why not embrace that, give them the training that they need, and really, use We're also looking at increasing the number of reading teachers, a redistribution and possible increase in the number of teaching assistants, and then really an overhaul of the delivery model that we have in the high school for interventions. It seems to take a significant amount of time in the school year to get interventions in place, and the delivery model that we have has not produced the results that we would like to see. So we're not going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's time to make a change. And Mr. Seabrook has a plan for that you'll see. So that's really where we're at with putting a plan together to move forward to ensure that all of our students are reading on grade level in the shortest term and time possible. I also just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the work that our coaches do. Several of those coaches are new to that role this year. Corinne is new to that role. That role and position didn't even exist. And I'll be honest with you, I just want to speak to Corinne for a moment. She has done an absolutely phenomenal job in that role. She didn't have somebody that she was replacing. There was not a program in place that she was just picking up. Everything that you see, for the most part, has been of her own design. And she's an example of what happens when you get the right person for the job. So she has turned that role into something that is really important, and I just want to acknowledge the hard work that she's done in that. Also, with our two additional coaches and the coaches that you saw before us, they are truly leaders. They're in a very difficult position in the district, and that they're teachers, yet they're expected to provide training, guidance to their peers, which is a very fine line to walk through. And these coaches that you saw before us this evening really do a terrific job for that. We need to be sensitive to the fact that they're really guiding their peers. And for some of their peers, that doesn't necessarily come with a lot of acceptance. It takes a little bit of time. I just wanted to acknowledge there's an art and definitely a science to what they're doing. And I just wanted to say thank you. All right, that's it.
I do have one question. What are we doing for kids that are also?
Oh, terrific. So in the very near future, you're going to hear from Dr. Simbridge on our Gifted and Talented program. And you know, she has nicely articulated the difference between gifted and talented. You know, gifted are that small number of students who are just way above everybody. Our talented students are students who are perhaps above everybody else in a certain area, topic, a skill, and that's going to be what we're going to talk about in the future, very near future, how we're addressing those particular students and ensuring that everyone in the district is challenged.
And great job to everybody that did the presentation tonight. It's eye-opening when you know you're doing things. Like for me, I can't comprehend how it's working, so I really value that. Let's go on to the Board of Education message. We're going to start with Dale, because you're at the end.
Sure. That's why I'm at the end today. I also like to thank all the coaches that have presented tonight. It's nice to see that we have an instructional plan in place to address some of our students' needs. I'd also like to say thanks to Corinne for taking on the role of the SEL coach. Like Mark was saying before, social emotional learning is really the basis for all the, you have to feel safe emotionally, socially in school, in order to have everything else. So I just want to say thanks. We really missed out on that, over the past couple of years with the COVID, and it's nice to get that back on track.
Thanks, Dale. Brad?
I'd also like to say thanks for the presentation. I think kids in grade level with that, and my daughter's struggling to want to go to school, and she never had those things. And I obviously attributed it to COVID and all that stuff. One thing I see on there that blew my mind was the 7th grade thing, almost 7th
Starts even earlier.
Yeah. How about Jess?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening. I just wanted to
Can't
thank.
hear you anymore, Jess.
No? Oh, wait. Hello?
There you go.
Hey.
Sorry about that. No, but I wanted to say thank you to the presenters. I know that took some time. May have only taken, 10 minutes or so to present it, but I know it took hours to get to where you are. And thank you for that. And the next round, I would hope that we would get more accurate numbers of the total. And I'm sure you'll find ways to do that. And it was just really eye-opening to see how much bullying and those kinds of concerns are on the students. And I look forward to seeing progress of this new pilot program. Thank you for your work.
Gary?
Yeah, I'll change it up a little. Well, before the board meeting, we were kind of like joking about the snow coming. It's always exciting when we got a winter storm coming your way. I hope everybody's out there hoping we're gonna get about 2 feet of snow. We have no intention of having snow days because we don't believe in them around here. Everybody that loves skiing is just hoping for all the snow, and I hope our ski clubs are doing strong, and I hope everyone's enjoying the weather. I tell you what, there's nothing better than walking out the door in the morning, -5, and breathe that crisp, fresh air. That's like the best days ever right there. But if you add 2 feet of snow to it, it makes it even better. So, no, but seriously, I thank everyone in the district for doing all the hard work. I'm looking forward to hearing how the plans are going to progress. We've talked about a lot in the past month and a half, 2 months. I really want to see a lot of this come to fruition. Talk is cheap, actions speak louder, or that whole 9, everything. I want to see all this come forward. I want to know more about this SCL surveys that we're doing. I want to know how we're getting the participation. I want to know how the reading department is going to be doing. I want to know all of this stuff. I want to see improvements. We all want to see improvements. Brad mentioned that he has kids in the district, so do I. I want to see improvements. I got a 7-year-old. She's got 10 years to go in this district. I want to see improvements. I want to see that she's going to be successful in this school, not just on their own effort, but the school is doing a lot to make sure that these kids are successful. Not everybody is a self-motivator, a good self-learner, so we got to fix that. I like a lot of the discussions we had in the presentations. It always brings me back to one of those cartoons that we've seen from decades ago. It was something about judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. Always think it's stupid or unworthy or something like that. I'm glad to see we're turning that corner where we're talking about instruction to meet what the kids need. So I think that's a great turning of the corner. I'm glad in that direction. I'm just anxious to see where we go with all this. That's really what I want to say.
Yeah, I love the point they made about kids can't learn if you don't teach it. And sometimes we do put so much on the kids when it's not just the kids, and it's everybody, it's everything. So I thought the presentations were great tonight, and thank you to everybody again that did that. The last I want to close on, and I know we're going to move on tonight, is for board members. I did send an email about Barb St. Jude has resigned as of tonight, and she's been a teacher in the district. She was a union representative. Who gave the contract from the board's opinion. She made some great negotiations, let me tell you. And she was strong on the board. She was a strong teacher. She was my 5th grade teacher. And she did send in her resignation letter, which I will read. She just said, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve the community and the students of Salamanca as a member of the Board of Education for the past 11 years. In fact, it has been a perfect follow-up to my career of over 30 years as an elementary teacher. Since coming to the district in 1972, I have been fortunate to be a part of the lives of many students and their families. Since Brad and I provide childcare to our grandchildren several days a week, and my availability is limited, it is appropriate to submit my resignation as a member of the Board of Education effective February 1st, 2022. We have witnessed and helped accomplish outstanding progress in the past few years. I believe we are on the right track. I'm optimistic for a bright future for our school and our students, and wish only the best for our student staff and community where we resided for almost 50 years. I will sincerely miss my visit to the schools and attending school events. Thank you for your commitment to the entire board, administration, and the staff of the Salamanca City School District for their partnership. So, Barb will be missed, and I just wanted to acknowledge, you know, her career and what she's done for this school district over, you know, 30 years. So it's really something, and it's going to be missed. Yeah, probably 41. Is that 41? Oh, yeah, 41. Thank you. Yeah. So, and that's all I have. So I will turn it over to Bob.
Thank you. I want to do two thank yous, and I'll echo the appreciation for our presenters, both over the last few meetings tonight, and then we'll have some more presentations at upcoming board meetings about specific initiatives that we're doing to engage students. But I do want to thank Karen and her staff for the impact data application. Everything that we are doing is predicated on a strong fiscal plan. Karen is a champion for making sure that we have everything that we need. And even though Mark and I and perhaps others on staff drive her crazy, don't let her kid you. She's one of the best advocates in business for teaching, learning, children, and achievement. So I want to thank Karen for her work on the impact data application. We've come a long way since 2013, where we were thinking, well, we might get 50,000 or maybe 60 if we were lucky. We've not only been lucky, we've been blessed, and luck is where hard work and preparation intersect, and we're lucky to have Karen on staff. So thank you, Karen. I also want to recognize Mrs. Sandy as well. Barb has been an incredible advocate for all things that are good about Salamanca. And on those rare instances where we may get over our skis, to use Carrie's snow analogy, Barb was always the immediate course corrector. She was never shy about doing the right thing. She was vocal, she was kind, she was passionate. I genuinely believe that there isn't a thing that Barb wouldn't have done or hasn't already done to make Salamanca a better place. And if Karen's financial acumen and skill and talent is rivaled, it's by Barb's commitment to the children and the staff of this community, and we are blessed to have both of them. I will miss Barb's wit, her candor, her conscience, and I hope that wherever the direction goes with the board in the future, that whomever follows Barb will be up to that challenge in time, and we are grateful for her decades of service. So personally, I want to thank Barb as well. I just want to also follow up on two other brief points that Dr. Beeler mentioned, the test stay program. And if you have not been to my office lately, it looks like a Calvin and Hobbes cardboard fort. We have boxes and boxes of test kits, roughly, I'm going to guess, approximately 4,000 test kits. So we are deeply appreciative of that delivery and the ongoing delivery from both the county and Dr. Watkins and his staff, and also the New York State Department of Health, to make sure we have them. For those who may need a test, if you're in a pickle, please let us know. Some of the tests do have expiration dates. You may have heard me mention this, that these rapid test kits are highly sensitive to extreme temperatures, so please don't leave them in your car. You will most likely get an incorrect reading, so keep them someplace warm and dry. We appreciate those efforts. And lastly, we haven't talked about this in a while, but it's resurfaced about a week and a half or so ago. We have constituted a playground planning committee. If you may recall, one of the design elements for Vets Park was playground. It will be situated next to the basketball court. And so playground planning and design has begun. And we'll have some updates once the committee starts to get to work on that. So hopefully in the next couple of months that will take greater shape and be a further addition to the true jewel that we know is Vets Park. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Ray for the rest of the agenda.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item 5, which is our consent agenda. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Brad.
Second.
Second by Dale. All in favor?
Aye.
Hold on,
Oops, I'm sorry. Any questions?
Bob, I wanted you to explain what we had talked about as far as these trips and their due diligence.
Sure, happy to. So the conversation started last board meeting with a group of students. We were looking to attend the National Association of Federally Impacted Schools Conference in Washington, D.C. If you recall, last spring, we talked about a new curriculum for our secondary students about advocacy. And so we helped with the help of Education Elements, one of our partners that has been helping us with strategic planning. They helped to redesign some coursework to teach students some advocacy skills. And they've been working on that this semester. About a dozen students, I actually think it's 15 students and 3 chaperones are scheduled to go down to DC. They will be traveling in not a coach van, it's a bus, it's a little bit smaller than that. The best described as kind of a moderate mini-sized bus, and we're looking to have a school vehicle follow them to put the luggage in the van to give them a little bit of space in that transportation mode. They'll be spending part of their time in Washington, D.C. at the National Association of Federally Impacted Schools Conference. They'll be doing some educational activities, and then on Tuesday, I believe, March 15th, we'll be spending the entire day up on Capitol Hill taking meetings. Carrie had brought up some concerns about COVID protocols. I was just in DC last weekend for some meetings, and DC is locked down very tight. You need to show vaccination to get in and out of any venue, including restaurants or stores. It is very intense down there. And I think rightly so, it's a large municipal area. So our students will be going down. They are vaccinated. We have, I packed up yesterday the impact aid test kits for the students. So we'll be having them test prior to leaving twice and then testing on the way home just to make sure. We've made some personal arrangements in the event of a contingency where a student or a staff member needs to quarantine because of an exposure or a positive. With the adult chaperones going down and the COVID protocols in place, I feel confident saying that I think they're as safe as we can. We have sent students to DC earlier this school year. There's another group going in May, and there was an announcement today. I think there's 2 groups going, but I only heard the May date of the announcements. And we also have a number of other students and curriculum activities where the students will be going overnight. One's on the agenda, heading to Rochester. It's a little bit smaller group. Smaller is better and more tightly managed. And then the big one will be the student, the senior trip, I believe in May to Virginia. So some of the same protocols in place, pre-testing and testing on the way home will be in place. So, and should anything change, then we will change. If there's a spike, or if there's an outbreak, or if there's something on the ground changes, we'll cancel the trip and take appropriate action based on what's happening.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry, the DECA trip is also on here. So we had 5 students going to Rochester in March. So a lot of the same protocols. So
In regard to the NAPERS trip, I've sent that on to BOCES because it's an actual class going on the trip to see if it will be eligible for BOCES aid. And it looks like it will be, but it still needs to go through their full protocols, which we
Any other questions? We got a motion by Brad, second by Bill. All in favor? Aye. Jeff? Jeff, yeah, thumbs up by Jeff, okay. Opposed, abstained, motion carried. Our old business is our policies. So with the policies, do we want to move this to Tuesday, the 8th, and have a policy discussion?
There's two separate, there's,
Oh, I'm sorry.
transportation and, security breach. and then-
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Because I read them. I just got ahead of myself. All right, so how about this? Policy 5672 and policy 5741. We need a motion to approve those two policies.
Motion.
Motion by Carrie. Second by Brad. Are there any questions?
Just a clarification for policy 5741 with the testing. Two additions, there's a customization. Designee will be the head bus driver as a contact person for that first paragraph, second paragraph, excuse me. And then later on in the document, it talks about district-owned buses and contract buses. We do occasionally contract out for buses, coach buses, larger activities. It's less with our coach buses, but we will just disseminate the information and keep both of those in because sometimes
Everyone else get those changes? Carrie and Brad?
Yes.
Okay, then we need a motion to approve. All in favor, I should say. Aye. Jess? Thumbs up by Jess, opposed, abstained. All right. Now our code of conduct discussion. So is this what we want to move to Tuesday, the 8th for policy discussion?
Well, in the beginning, that's all I was asking if we were gonna discuss it tonight, put it on the agenda or discuss it policy next Tuesday.
what I might suggest is let's approve it, let's motion, have a conversation, and we can table it and then come back on Tuesday.
So, well, hold on a second. This is the revised policy. right?
No, this is just, my intent was to have a conversation about some of the concerns. We don't have, the students, the staff, the adults haven't caucused to talk about specific solutions. We've had some administrative conversations, but I think because it's code of conduct, it really should be a bigger conversation. Certainly the board has a role. Absolutely.
So we're motioning to table it.
Actually, it was just discussion.
Right.
You can just,
That's why I didn't
you
know.
want to discuss a little bit about it or just no discussion tonight?
I just want to make sure that everybody understands if we move it to policy, that it'll be next week. What time? Because we got finance at 5:30.
We're gonna discuss phase 4. In addition to a couple other things, so probably.
Finance up.
You guys.
I might suggest having this, we're gonna have a conversation to have the policy conversation. First, I don't want to step on Karen's finance toes, but if there's other people that are coming to the meeting, to have them come back at 7 or 7:30, we may not get the other participants that might be able to help us with some of that information, unless you want me to do that in advance and then bring that report. The field
Well,
says.
what I was gonna suggest is if we do finance a little bit earlier, 4:30.
It's up to you guys. It's up to you three.
I'm good at 4:30.
Okay, do finance at 4:30, we'll be done by 6, set policy at 6. Next Tuesday. Chad, you good with that? You'll be here? Verbal.
Oh, excuse me, yes.
Okay,
Okay.
just so I have it right, you're gonna have finance from 4:30 to 6, and then policy meeting at 6 o'clock.
Hopefully that, how about that? Does anybody else have anything they want to say about the code of conduct discussion? Or just gonna leave it? We'll just save everything for next
And I'm fine with that.
So can you just help me out? Am I advertising for a special meeting? A special Board of Education meeting, or just talking about the code of conduct and then we open the public?
The student after the code of conduct.
The what?
The student after the code of conduct.
All are welcome. Right?
Thank you.
All right. Then we move on to number 7, which is the Board of Education member resignation. So we need a motion to accept Barbara's resignation. Motion by Carrie, second by Dale. Are there any questions?
I'd just like to say thank you to Barb for many decades of service to our district. She wasn't a resident here to start with, but she became a resident. So very long career followed up by over a decade on school board service. So we said now we are. So yeah,
We have a motion by Carrie, second by Dale. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Russ is thumbs up, opposed, abstained, motion carried. Next, we have our school special education district plan. We need a motion to approve the special education district plan.
Motion.
Motion by Dale,
second.
second by Carrie. Are there any questions?
See that again.
Listen. I got back from the dentist, so like I'm recovering from being numb. Just want you to know that. I've been doing good all night. Don't make me say yeses, okay? But I can say it again if you want me to. Okay. Motion by Dale, second by Carrie. All in favor? Aye. Thumbs up by Jess, opposed, abstained, motion carried. And then we have PSU MOA. So we need a motion to approve that MOA. Motion by Brad,
Second.
second by Carrie. Are there any questions?
Just a notation for the board, we're starting a deeper dive into the consolidated service unit contract starting on February 10th. And so just FYI, we're working with that association to clean up a number of items and it will look like a successor agreement out of that way. So that will take a few weeks.
Okay.
But this is the stopgap.
Okay, so we have a motion by Brad, second by Carrie. All in favor?
Aye.
Thumbs up by Jess. Opposed, abstained, motion carried. Item E is the creation of a full-time teacher assistant. So we need a motion to approve that position.
Motion.
Motion by Dale,
Second.
second by Carrie. Are there any questions?
Just, can I ask Karen to clarify something? Did this original, and maybe Dr. Dealer, did this original request come from the Title VI committee or was this from the NAC? The American Curriculum Team? Correct. Okay, all right.
This is in relation to the grant for language development.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So we have a motion by Dale, second by Carrie, all in favor?
Aye.
Thumbs up by Jess, opposed, abstained, motion carried. Item E is our 2022 winter enrichment and continuing education catalog. So we need a motion to approve that catalog.
Motion.
Motion by Brad,
Second.
second by Dale. Are there any questions? You haven't gone through the catalog, there's a lot of really neat stuff on there, so if there's anybody to take a look at it. All in favor?
Aye.
Thumbs up by Jess. Opposed, abstained, motion carried. And then item F is our annual election budget vote, voter registration day, petitions and announcements. So our election will be May 17th. And we need a motion to approve the resolution. Motion by Carrie. Second by Gail. Are there any questions? No. All in favor? Aye. Thumbs up, I guess. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Item G is our contract, Cattaraugus County Department of Social Services. We need a motion to approve that contract.
Motion.
Motion by Gail. Second by Brad. Any questions? Contract runs to July 2021. Any questions or comments? No.
It's just things are a little delayed. COVID, so.
Got a motion by Gail, second by Brad, all in favor? Aye. Thumbs up by Jess, opposed, abstained, motion carried. Item H is our vehicle bids. So we have 4 buses that we are selling to.
The price is right.
Yeah, it's like 6,000 on every bus, and then we have a 4 pickup for $5,000. We need a motion to approve the bids. And approve the vehicle bids. Motion by Brad, second by Carrie. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thumbs up by Jess. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Item 8 is our personnel consent agenda. Need a motion to approve the personnel consent agenda.
Motion.
Motion by Gail. Second by Brad. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thumbs up by Jess. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Do you have anybody that you need to introduce that?
No one is on the agenda that is on the phone, so not today.
Well, item D, we have unpaid. Oh, hang on, I'm sorry.
Your security people that are doing.
Oh, where'd they go?
They left.
They went to the basketball game.
I'm sorry, they were here last night. They were here, I'm
Were
sorry.
any of those guys on for tonight?
Yeah. Just Matt. Matt,
Jack,
Jim, and.
Ross Stoltz and Matthew Quigley were here.
Well, we thank our security guards, all of them, and all manner of roles that they're playing to keep us safe.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I
That
didn't see
just
that
shows
we.
they're doing their job. They
Yeah.
left- They left the board.
That's the same
meeting.
one.
You don't even know they're there. They'll say for-
Item D is our unpaid admin leave of absence, so we need a motion to approve the unpaid leave. Who made that motion?
Second.
Motion by Brad, second by Carrie. Are there any questions?
This is a notation, as personally offensive this is, it is a law and it is required, so.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I wish there was a different avenue.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thumbs up by Jess. Opposed? Unopposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Item 9 is our board information reports with our policy meetings. And our third meeting will be on the 8th is going to be finance, and our policy review will go over the student code of conduct, monthly code of conduct. And then you're there for the grade.
Just with regards to the date, Teresa and I had a conversation about changing the personnel committee from the 17th to the 10th. That basically is Teresa and Carrie And with Barb's resignation, Barb often attended those. I don't know if we want to sub Barb in or not. But as I noted to the board earlier today, we have a list of requested positions for the 22-23 budget. That'll be one of the major topics. For the personnel. 210. We would suggest moving to 210 or 217. It's your pleasure.
10 or 217.
Either's fine.
Oh, it's best for you guys.
It's 7:45, 8 o'clock in the morning, so.
Okay. Well, then we'll keep it. We'll do it in a second.
Okay.
If either, or John, or Brad, or Dale want to.
So about a half an hour. We can do Zoom when we can.
I'm sure they will talk. Okay.
Okay.
And with that, we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Terry,
Second.
second by Dale. All in favor?
Aye.
Thumbs up by Josh, opposed, abstained, motion carried. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.